Hey, it is time for another weekly project update down here at St. Simon's Elementary. I'm standing on the interior of the campus where our playground's going to be. We've talked about our bell tower here. We've talked about our sidewalks. Those activities have taken a pause, and what we've done in the last week is we have started to grade out the interior of the campus. You can see that we've got our water truck over there where we've added water to our soil in order to get compaction. I've talked about it before, but just as a reminder, when you're down here at the beach, you've got to add water to your soil in order to get your compaction. Think of as you're building a sand castle. You've got your bucket. If you put just that dry sand in there, dump it out, it immediately loses its form. But if you run down to the ocean, get a little bit of water, then dump your bucket over, you've got a formed sand castle. So that's one thing that we've done in the last week. The other thing that's noteworthy is we have had our surveyor come out and lay out elevation and grade stakes. Those grade stakes are all around here, which is ultimately where our track is going to be. Our grader has been referencing those in conjunction with his grading activities to see if he's high or low with our running track that we have to install. That running track goes in a big circle here, and then you can see we've got a lot more stakes, and that's because we've got a teed sidewalk that connects back over here to our canopies. So that's one thing that we've had going on the interior of the site. The other thing that we've been working on is the installation of our roof drainage apron. So we don't have gutters on our classroom, and that's because we want to preserve the historic value of this building, and it didn't initially have gutters. So we've got this storm apron drainage mat here, and that's a combination of 3 masonry blocks with a drainage mat inside of it, and then drainage and pea gravel that goes underneath the sidewalk and then connects to mains, which then go out over into the center of the campus. So you can see where we've got that sock piping right there in the center of an 8-inch masonry block, and then pea gravel that infills with it, very similar to a French drain. So that's the two things that we've been working on at the interior of the site, at our playground. Let's go walk around to our clinic and our teacher workroom and see what we've done over there. All right, over here at our clinic and our teacher dining, you can see that we've continued forward with our masonry restoration efforts. That white paint on the wall is actually a paint stripper. So we're leaving that to set up and remove some caulking and old paint that were on that existing brick. We'll pressure wash that and get it off. Over here at our teacher workstation addition, we've laid our block, our masonry infill, and we've installed our air barrier. Earlier today, we met with our mason on site who came by and did his takeoff for how many brick it's going to take him to lay up this veneer, as well as what masonry accessories he'll need. You can actually see his writing on this wall here where he's got 40 feet. That's the length of this. I've already bought the brick for him, so all he's got to do is the accessories. We've got a little bit of air barrier left to do here and air barrier left to do over here, as well as masonry infill where we had to demo out some more of our existing wall. No big deal. Mason will be here Monday. He'll get started on this. Should go along pretty easy. And so yeah, that is the clinic and teacher dining. Let's walk into our cafeteria here and see what we've got going on. We had previously encountered some asbestos, asbestos containing material, which was insulation around a plumbing pipe. And so we had to encapsulate this area early on in the week, wrap that pipe up, cut it into sections, remove the insulation, and get it out of here. You can see over here, we actually still have our warning signs up, although this area has been cleared. That's standard practice for anything dealing with asbestos. And we've removed that insulation and the pipe with it. We've talked about our roof truss issues and how this specifically is not capable of supporting the roof load that we want to in place on it with our new roof. especially as it relates to these overhead utilities. That's a domestic water line, and that black pipe is fire sprinkler lines. That fire sprinkler piping and domestic water piping is very heavy. Water is 8 pounds to the gallon, and because of that, we've got about 40 feet in width here. That is a lot of water. So we have gotten with our engineer, and they have sized new roof trusses with us, and we've got a meeting tomorrow to brainstorm what kind of schedule impact we have and how we're going to demo out these trusses and replace new ones. One of those big questions is, do you demo out all of these existing trusses at once, or do you do it segmentally? There's an economic efficiency if you do it all at once, but if you do that, you've got to pay respect to the fact that this masonry partition, it would be freestanding and have no bracing because the joist would then be removed. So we'll discuss that in detail tomorrow with our team, make a decision, and move forward. Let's go see what we've got going on with our classrooms. All right, walking into our classroom corridor, you can see that we have all of our drywall taped, mudded, and finished at this point. This is the interior of the clinic that we were talking about. You'll walk into this space. You'll be, served with a bathroom and a shower. Then you'll have a teacher's or a nurse's station over here with a casework bench and sink and cabinetry. And then over here to the left, they'll have a doctor's table and overhead curtains that will be installed. One big thing that we've got left to do, that's the big picture, what this thing will look like in the end, but we're almost out of our overhead activities, and that's throughout our classroom spaces. The last thing that we have left to do is insulate our water piping, which is that PVC piping there. After we get done with that, we can invite our fire marshal out for an overhead inspection. And once he blesses utilities and our smoke walls, which is something that we're working on in our corridor walls, our smoke walls, that is generally the case, if not always. You can see that we've got drywall infill where we used an old transom, and we need to seal around the perimeter and the penetrations. And we've still got a little bit of work left to do with that. That's an example right there. You can see that daylight coming through. So that's something that we're working on, as well as our insulation to gear up for an overhead inspection next week. That in combination with our windows, you can see that on these windows here, we've got our window sill plate installed, but we don't have the window frames installed. And so before we can think of the next step in our overhead activities, which would be acoustical ceiling grid, drop ceiling, think of what you see in classrooms and general corporate commercial spaces, those square ceiling tiles that lay into a grid, we've got to get our window frames installed. Now we have started our window frames, but that's something I had to turn up the heat on with our subcontractor today, is emphasizing, hey, I'm waiting on you. I am waiting on you. You've got these frames installed. Where's my glass at? And why aren't all of them in? Because all of the frames are ready to be installed. That is simply a function of labor, and that is a function that we can solve. So after we get our windows installed and our glass in, we can start thinking of acoustical ceiling grid and conditioned air, and then right after that, some flooring. So that's what's going on the interior of the classrooms. One other thing just before I close out here on what's going on with our classrooms, we need to talk about our first finishing activity, and finishing meaning finished product that will remain forever, and that is floor tile. So you can see that this is a gang bathroom. You'll have sinks over here, which are what those plumbing stub outs are for, and then you've got urinals, which are what these stub outs are for, and water to serve them over there and over there. Our slab is recessed. Our slab is recessed because we need to install our masonry mortar bed and then our ceramic tile on it, and that is coming here in the next 2 weeks. All right, so that is it for our classrooms. Let's see if we've got anything else to talk about on the exterior of the building. All right, hopping to the exterior, not much to talk about here, but there is an activity ongoing We over at the interior of the campus, we had that masonry block laid into the ground. This is simply what it looks like in the first phase of that installation. They get rid of the dirt to dig a ditch, and then they infill with a graded aggregate base, the masonry block, the drainage, and that's what's going on here. The other thing relating to drainage that we have ongoing is we've got some main storm lines that we've got to install that serve these drains, the roof edge drains here, that serve these and then collect, all together and drain outwards over here to Ocean Boulevard into the storm sewer main. We did discover an elevation conflict with this today. Specifically, we've got a drainage box that goes here and a drainage box that goes over here in our corner. And that drainage box that is prescribed to go in this corner and then connect to that one over there, we've got a conflict. It won't work. And so we will have to tie into our main, which we have already previously done. As you can see right here with this asphalt infill that we've completed. However, that's not our utility. Over here where I'm standing, all of these utilities in the ground are ours. However, whenever you start getting out into the street, that is a public right-of-way and requires additional permitting. Fortunately for us, this little bit of piping that's sitting here isn't really a critical path item. It's all important because we're sprinting to finish over the summer. However, we can lose a week or 2 weeks on that and it not kill us. The other thing to talk about on the front side of the campus on Ocean Boulevard is the installation of our canopy. We've talked about our canopies a little bit. These things have sat stagnant as I was figuring out how I'm going to trade to get them installed. I've since figured that out, and so now my next step is just to buy this lumber and then get my man Jorge on site to get the installation started. That's what's going on down at St. Simon's. Check in next week for another update.